And you shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all of your soul, with all of your mind, and with all of your strength. Now, I did not write down the Greek words there, and in a way I kind of wish I had, because I would have liked to have shown you the difference between the word heart and mind. But the word heart there, cardia, in the original Greek, Old Testament written in Hebrew, New Testament written in Greek, translated in the 3rd century thereabout, in the Roman Catholic Church primarily because of the Romans in Latin, and then the King James Version when he had a fallout with the Roman Church and decided to put the Bible in the language of ordinary men, then the King James Version. And we use the word heart because even back then it was considered the center of man. But the word heart in the original Greek means your thoughts, your feelings, your mind, your imagination. The word soul means life in general. It means spirit, but it also means life in general. It can even mean vitality as far as the life in a plant. The word mind there, and it's a Greek word, starts with the word D, starts with the letter D. But the word mind there actually doesn't mean mind as in mind as much as it means deep thoughts or disposition of the mind or understanding. And what this word means is a predisposed way of thinking. This is talking about thought patterns and a predisposed way of thinking. And with all of your strength. The word strength there means force, ability, might, or power. Now let's look at this. You shall love the Lord your God with all of your mind. Yes, your heart. With all of your heart, your mind. My mind, the way I think, my emotions, my feelings, my thoughts, my imaginations are supposed to evoke an emotion or a thought pattern of love towards God. So I can't have my mind split between two gods. I cannot have my mind split between God and a variety of fleshly things that are taking as much affection from me. We only have so much energy to give affection, folks. But we can give affection, we can give allegiance, but we only have a certain amount of energy to do that. So I cannot split my affections in my mind. I can't split my affections between God and something that is sensual and natural and fleshly and doesn't benefit the spirit but only benefits the flesh. I'm not going to name things. There's no reason. If you're on a conviction over something, you already know what I'm talking about. And if you're not, then you still know what I'm talking about. I'm to love the Lord with all of my mind. So I've got to have a mind centered toward God. I'm to love Him with all of my soul. That means spirit, but it also means life in general, as far as the spark of life. So my spirit man inside of me, that part that became alive at salvation, I'm to love Him with all of my spirit, all of that spark of life. And then I'm to love Him with all of my mind. Deep thoughts, predisposed way of thinking, disposition of understanding. In other words, that needs to be natural. That needs to be the way I think. I need to be predisposed to love God. I need that to be the natural thought processes of my mind. I don't love God just on Easter when I show up for a service. And I don't love Him just at Christmas when I show up for a Christmas play. I don't love Him just when I get a raise from the boss. No, my natural thoughts is thoughts of love towards God. I don't love God when I'm rich and healthy and happy. I love God all the time. If I'm up, I love Him. If I'm down, I love Him. If I'm rich, I love Him. If I'm poor, I love Him. If I'm married, I love Him. If I'm single, I love Him. If I'm skinny, I love Him. If I'm fat, I love Him. I mean, loving God is which the way I think towards God is always thoughts of love. I don't think thoughts of love towards God just when it's convenient, just when somebody's watching. I think thoughts of love towards God 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year. That is what this word mind means here. It means to be predisposed to think a certain way. And then I'm to love Him with all of my strength, my force, my ability, and my mind. Now there's a poem I want to read you here that goes with this at this time. This poem was written by Sam Foss in the late 1800s. And Sam Foss was he was a librarian. He was the editor of a little news publication in Massachusetts. And he wrote a book called The Calf Path. And it turns and twists in the prose that it is written. But I'm going to try to do it justice, though I may not. But just listen, because it's kind of like reading a poem out of the King's English, as it were. One day through the primeval wood, a calf walked home as good calves should. But he made a trail all bent askew, a crooked trail as all calves do. Since then, 300 years have fled, and I infer the calf is dead. But still he left behind his trail, and thereby hangs my moral tale. The trail was taken up next day by a lone dog that passed that way. And then a wise bell-weathered sheep pursued the trail over vale and steep, and drew the flock behind him too, as all good bellwethers always do. And from that day o'er hill and glade, through those old woods a path was made. And many men wound in and out, and dodged and turned and bent about, and uttered words of righteous wrath, 'cause 'twas such a crooked path. And still they followed, do not laugh, the first migrations of that calf. And through this winding woodway stalked, because the calf wobbled when he walked. This forest path became a lane, and bent and turned again. This crooked lane became a road, where many a poor horse with his load toiled on beneath the burning sun, and traveled some 3 miles in one. And thus a century and a half they trod the footsteps of that calf. The years passed on in swiftest fleet. The road became a village street. And this before men were aware, a crowded city thoroughfare. And soon the central street was this of a renowned metropolis. And men 2 centuries and a half still trod in the footsteps of that calf. Each day 100,000 rout about the zigzag calf about, and followed his crooked journey went the crowd of a continent. 100,000 men were led by one calf nearly 3 centuries dead. They followed still his crooked way, and lost 100 years a day. For thus such reverence is lent to a well-established precedent. A moral lesson this might teach, were I ordained and called to preach. For men are prone to go in blind along the calf paths of the mind. They work away from sun to sun to do what other men have done. They follow in the beaten track, and in and out and forth and back, and still their devious course pursue to keep the path that others do. They keep the path a sacred groove, along which all their lives they move. And how the wise old wood gods laugh, who first saw the primeval calf. All the many things this tale might teach, but I am not ordained to preach. Well, I am ordained to preach. And what that poem is about, that poem is about blindly following precedent. It tells about this wobbly calf cutting a trail through the woods. And when you come to the edge of the woods and you see a trail, anything that's beaten down, you think, well, it's partially cleared, I'm going to follow it. So a dog followed the trail, sniffing along after that calf. And then a man saw it beaten down, and he and his horse went through it. And then the next day, somebody else went through it. And the story leans on the fact that over 300 years, even though this path was just the original migrations of calf, it became a major road that twisted and turned back and forth. And it became that road because of precedent. Because other people did it, so they were going to do it. And it brings us down to the point of men's lives, in which men follow the precedent set by other men. And they follow them down the same calf path of the mind, as it were, because it is what is natural, or it is what is normal. Well, I want you to comprehend the depth of the wisdom of that point. Because when you establish a pattern of thinking, and that pattern becomes socially acceptable, then people will follow a path that is crooked and bent and contrary to the good of mankind and contrary to their personal good. Because when we allow our minds begin to think in a certain pattern, then we follow that pattern blindly because everybody else did it that way. Let's talk about suits. Let's talk about suits. Now, I guess I'm just a rebel. I guess that's simple as it is. Because long before these TV preachers came along wearing blue jeans and shirts, I stopped wearing ties. I stopped wearing ties in the early 80s. Because I discovered that ties were invented by the devil to choke Pentecostal pastors. It was a revelation. And I stopped wearing ties. And when I got here, I finally did what other men had already done. I finally got brave enough to throw off the restraints of a hot suit and preaching something to where I could be comfortable enough that I wasn't having to tug and lift and pick and pull and worry and stuff like that. But why? Where did it become normal for the pastor to be the only one in the church in a suit? I mean, where did that become the natural way for a person to dress? I got news for you. Jesus didn't own no suits. I got news for you. The disciples didn't own no suits. I mean, it's just, but it became a precedent somewhere. There are 1,000 other things that have to do with worship. We come in, we sit down. We sing 2 or 3 songs. We take up offering. We sing 2 or 3 songs. The pastor gets up and preach. We have an altar service. We go home. I mean, I have read the Bible through from cover to cover. And I have never found this type of worship service outlined in the Bible. I've tried to find scripture for it. But it isn't because it's biblical, and it isn't because it's not biblical. It is because of precedent. Well, people have been doing it like that for as long as I remember. Well, the point is, you ain't that old. Because before you, do you realize, we come in on Wednesday night, a lot of us do, not everybody does, and I'm not going all that. I'm not looking into beating anybody over the head. But we come in on Wednesday night. But do you know that the Church of God did not start a Wednesday night program until the early 60s? Are you aware of that? That it wasn't until the early 60s that YPE became a regular worship service on Wednesday night? And if there was anything during the week between Sunday and Sunday, it was a special called prayer meeting. So the precedents that are so normal now have came as a result of tradition, but does not follow tradition of a generation ago. And the generation before them, it was even different than that, and on and on and on and on. So we get into this groove, and we get into this pattern of thinking, and it's the way we think, and it becomes an expectation, and people get nervous in the service if things don't flow or go exactly the way that it's been going for 50 years. Is anybody with me this morning? Stick with me this morning. You need to get this. Because we develop calf paths in our mind in which we follow certain paths and certain ways of thinking, and those things are not necessarily good for us, and they're not necessarily scriptural. And it doesn't mean that they're unscriptural. It just means the fact that there might be something new that God is wanting to do, and He's wanting to do it a different way, but because we are so well set in our rut of established precedent of this is the way things are done, that we can't think outside the box to do something different than we've ever done it before. I honestly think I would probably lose half of this church if I called everybody up on a Saturday night and said, we're going to have church in the back corner of the parking lot at Walmart, and maybe somebody coming by hear us preach about Jesus. People would be getting on the phone and they'd be calling one another, well, what in the world's going on? I can't believe he don't want us to be at church, and you know how hot Walmart is, and the cops are going to show up. We don't have a PA system, there ain't no bathrooms, and I don't know what in the world is going on. Why? Because everybody knows you can't have church in the back corner of the parking lot at Walmart. If God wanted you to have church there, He'd have built church there. No, it is because we are so used to doing things one way, we can't expand our thinking to something that's outside what our pattern of thinking tells us. Don't worry, I'm not going to call for church in the back corner of Walmart parking lot. But when we get in this groove, and we can't expand our minds to accept something that is outside the normal, or something that challenges tradition, that's a big one right there, honey. When you challenge tradition, people start to get nervous in the service. When you talk about doing things that nobody has done before, or either nobody's done it in a long time, or nobody's doing it now. Now, I haven't had anybody come up and complain to me. If you have complaints, you either, whoever you told them to didn't tell me, or either you ain't told nobody. But when I talked about the Praise Pavilion, and I first talked about building a structure out there that didn't have any walls, it had columns on a roof, and one day we'd close it in and become a church. And that's where we would get out there and have church in a church with no wall. And I've wondered since then, what did people think when I first introduced that? Did they think to this, oh, well, my Lord, that's just so silly. We just ain't ever done anything like that. And I don't think anybody ever do anything like that. I just don't understand that. Have no walls, got no walls, got no air conditioning. The Lord knows I got to have my air conditioning. And, I'm just wondering what's people thinking about that. And, but I got to thinking when I was thinking about that, I got to thinking about my mama. And my mama telling me that when they went to a town as a little girl, and a group of people decided they wanted a new church in that new town. This is back right after the Depression, when people are just now beginning to get back on their feet. She said, and they wanted to start a new church. She said, Mark, the men would get together and they'd build something called a brush arbor. Right. And I'd say, well, what was that, Mom? She said, well, they'd get these poles and they'd put them in the ground. And then they'd take the brush that they cut off the pine tree that they made the poles, and they would lay the brush across the top of the pine logs, and they would make a little shelter, and we'd have church out there in a brush arbor. And that's how the church was started. When they got enough money, they'd get a little bit better place, or they'd rent a place, and when they got enough money, they'd eventually build a building. But it all started in this open air thing. And I said, he didn't have no walls, didn't have nothing but a roof. And I got to thinking, well, if they could worship back in the 30s in a brush hour made out of a bunch of cut down pine trees, how come I can't put a metal building out on the front without no walls either? But precedence. We get to think in a certain way, and then God wants to do something different, and we can't do it different because tradition has a greater importance to us than the move of God. Now, having said that, let's go back now to Mark 12. You shall love the Lord your God with all of your mind. My mind can't be split between loving 1,000 things. I'm talking about more than God. I love God. I love my wife. I love a good steak. But I'm just saying, I'm talking about the way my mind thinks. I can't love my wife or a good steak or whatever more than I love God. So I've got to love God the most. With all of my soul, my spirit man, I'm loving the Lord, I'm serving God, I'm worshiping God, and it comes out of my spirit. With all of my mind, my predisposed way of thinking, with all of my strength, with every fiber that's in me. We're talking about an individual who has a made-up mind that Jesus is first in their life. They're going to pray their prayers every day. They're going to read their Bible. They're going to come to church. They're going to witness to the lost. They're going to invite people to church. They're going to give to the poor. They're going to sing. They're going to shout. They're going to bring potato salad to the cookout. They're going to be involved in the work day at the church, if there's something going on that has anything to do remotely with the Almighty God, they're going to be a part of it because that is the center of their life. That is who they are. That is the way they think. That is what makes them happy. Loving God is everything to them. Loving God is everything to them. And that is what this is all about. Now let's go back a few weeks and let's remember out of Proverbs, the 4th chapter. Keep your heart with all diligence, for out of it springs the issue of life. In another version it says, above everything else, guard your heart, for it is the source of life's consequences. It is the source of life's consequences. Above everything else, guard your heart. Proverbs 14:30. And a sound heart is life to the body. We'll just read part A. A sound heart is life to the body. The word sound means wholesome or healthy. A wholesome, healthy heart is the life of the body, the flesh. So if I'm going to have a good life, if I'm going to walk in blessings, if I'm going to be happy. Anybody in here woke up this morning and you just made a determination you're going to do everything you can to be miserable today? Raise your hand. I don't see nobody. Most of us want to be happy. We want to be happy. That's natural. I want to be happy. I want to be happy with me. I want to be happy with my family. I want to be happy with my church. I want to be happy with the way my car runs. I want to be happy with Alabama whooping on whoever's there playing that Saturday. I want to be happy. That's normal. We want things to work out. We want everything to work out. This morning, when the Keurig that was going to make our delicious cup of coffee had a nervous breakdown and exploded a pod, and I had to work on the Keurig, I wasn't happy. I wasn't having a happy time. I broke a piece off of it, trying to fix it, because I didn't have my glasses that I can see out of. And I had to repair it, and I had to put it back together. I was not happy. Now, a long, long time ago, when I wasn't as sanctified as I am now, I bought a real nice waffle maker at Sam's. Shell knows where this is going. I bought a real nice waffle maker with Sam. And you put your stuff in it. It's like what they have in the hotels. You put your stuff in it, and then you turn it so it spreads the batter out and makes you waffle. Oh, man, that was nice. I think I paid $64 for that thing. And then we go and we try to get man. And the waffle has just annealed itself. It splits in the middle. You got a waffle on the top and you got a waffle on the bottom. You might as well eat the waffle maker because that's the only way you get the waffle. Because it's stuck to it. And I just, okay, that's fine. So we worked, got it off. And went to do it the second time. Does the same thing. I go over. I open the back door. Michelle's wondering, what's he doing? I go over. I unplug the waffle maker. I walk to the back door, and I throw it out. And I shut the door. And she's just standing there looking at me. That Keurig does not know how close it came this morning to a trip to the backyard. How we think is going to be the source of life's consequences. If we have healthy thinking, if we have a mind that thinks God think, that talks God talk, that is constantly reminding us about the goodness of God, then we're going to be happy. Yes, we're going to have things happen. The waffle maker and the people that made that waffle maker, they weren't nothing but a bunch of greedy liars, in my opinion. The guy that built that Keurig, as much as that thing cost, it'll last for 15 years. It's just built it by the cheapest bidder. That's all it is. But so we're going to have times in our life in which they're not the happiest moments in our life. Things are going to challenge us. Cars are going to break down. Our children are going to backsass us after everything we bought them for Christmas. Problems are going to happen in our relationship. But when these things come, we have to make up our mind whether we're going to let them make us miserable or whether we're going to allow the joy of the Lord to remain in our hearts and rule and reign over the way we think. Life can make you miserable until you get to the place in which you learn to love God so much you can just shrug off all the other junk because you know it doesn't matter anyhow. As long as you've got God, you've got everything you need. A sound heart, a healthy, wholesome mind is health to our entire lives. These two scriptures show that the condition of our heart, our mental attitudes, the way we think is going to affect everything we do. And it's going to affect how we react to things that happen to us that we have no control over, that we have zero control over. And if we are consumed with the love of God, if we are consumed with His presence, if we're consumed with His power, then we will learn to react according to the faith that's in us and the power that's residing in us. I'm not saying we won't have turmoil in the flesh. I'm not saying we won't throw about every now and then and worry and doubt and fret. That's human nature. We are emotional creatures. But when it boils down to it and we gather ourselves back together, then our resolve to love God and serve Him is going to be as strong as ever before. People that backslide and go back on God, it's not because they necessarily had less of a chance than what you and I have. It is because they never fell in love with Him and to the point and the degree that they could not live without Him. If you don't want to worry about backsliding, then you fall in love with God to the point that you know I could never live without Him. There's nobody to go back to because there's nobody that I love more and nobody that's going to love me more. Would you please stand?